marvelous morning, awesome afternoon, and wonderful evening wherever you are in the world. For me and Victor, it's still morning in the United States. For Rael, and I hope I got it right, it is evening. He is from Pakistan, and our panel is a little smaller than normal, but the other person who was supposed to come, I found out late last night, could not make it. So everything's going as it should go. In any case, this is MindPlore with Carla and Friends. And today we are talking about what makes a best friend. Last week we talked about what is a friend, but what is a best friend? And what do you need to do to create that within your friends? Having said that, Victor, can you please give me your thoughts on this?
Excuse me, it's an interesting question. What makes a best friend? Well, first of all, superlatives, like the word best, are largely subjective. And if it is subjective, that means it is the way that I feel about whether or not someone is my best friend. I think that one characteristic that someone who's your best friend has to have is that they have to have dialogue with you on a regular basis. Now, my wife, from time to time, has told me that this person is her best friend. Later, she'll tell me that this person is her best friend. So, best friends are built on categories. This is my best friend at church. This is my best friend at school. This is my best friend on Facebook. So when you say what makes the best friend, that's really a loaded question. For me, my best friend, him and I refer to each other as besties. And I talk to him 3 or 4 times a week, and he talks to me 3 or 4 times a week. If I had to establish a baseline criteria for what a best friend does, it might surprise you. But maturing as I have over the years, I now believe that a best friend is the person who listens to you the most, who hears you the most. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you hear them, but it means that they hear you. Human beings talk a lot more than they listen. So when you find someone that's willing to subjugate their need to talk in order to listen to you, then I think you're on your way to identifying someone who has the potential for being your best friend.
Okay, so who would you consider to be your best friend?
My best friend is Leonidas Esquire. And
not your wife?
No, my wife is not my best friend. My wife is my wife. I know some people advocate that you should marry your best friend, and some people do marry their best friend. While my wife and I are extremely close and we spend a lot of time together, I couldn't say that she is my best friend. And she wouldn't say that I'm her best friend. And the only difficulty that will arise from a situation like that is the judgment that either person would put on the fact that they're not each other's best friends. Now, if you get a relationship where one person thinks that the spouse should be the best friend and the other person doesn't, that's built-in conflict as far as I'm concerned. But my wife accepts the fact that I love her and she is my wife, my one and only wife, the one that I have now, and she accepts the fact that I'm her husband. Now we talk about many things, but what we don't talk about is the problems that the other one brings to the table. That's what you need a best friend for.
That's very, you don't talk to your wife about your problems?
I don't talk to her about the problem that she brings to me. She doesn't bring that many problems, but I don't talk to her about the problems that she brings to me. I recently thought of a program I saw many years ago called Two Gentlemen of Verona, and this is very interesting. It was a stage play, and it was set at the gravesite of a particular woman, and there were two men. One man was married to her, and one man was her best friend. And the two men were sharing their concepts, their ideas about their lives together. And oddly enough, the best friend was jealous of the husband, and the husband was jealous of the best friend. You see, the woman shared the things that were in her heart with her best friend about her husband. And she shared things in her heart about her husband with her best friend. So the two different roles, they both have a place, but I don't think they're both the same place. You can have a best friend, you can have a husband, and it's okay if they're in two different people.
Oh, yeah, I'm not saying it isn't. I just find it very interesting that you said that. What about you, Rayed? I'm really trying to get your name correct.
I think I agree with what Victor has said. Uh, as far as wife is concerned, she is not your best friend. That's totally agree. I totally agree. And in Eastern culture, uh, the institution of marriage is way different from the way it is in the Western world, you know, and especially in Muslim world, uh, marriage is much greater than friendship. It's a responsibility. It's created so you can bring new lives to the world, and you know you can upbring them. So many times you don't have that friendship with your wife, and sometimes you do, but love is much more bigger than a friendship, you know. Usually you don't have love when it comes to friendship, but with wife you have a responsibility, shared responsibility and love. So I agree with what Victor is saying about wife.
Okay, how do you, let's get away from that. How do you describe a best friend or even a friend?
Actually, you know, in our Eastern culture, uh, you will be surprised when I tell you that there are, the state of friendship is for a very short time. Okay, the way it works for us is that you know somebody, he's your acquaintance, you met that person through business relationship, through some place, you know, neighborhood and all that. So then from there you come, it's like a pendulum. Then you come in the middle, you are friend for a very short time. And then we Eastern people, especially the Muslim people, they are very quick in changing that friendship into brotherhood. See, this friendship state is a very temporary state. So I met somebody, for example, his name is Shawali. I think I met him about 3 months ago. We were friends for maybe a week, and then we both psychologically turned ourselves into brotherhood. So then I came back. He lives in another city. He sent his son to me, to get some training in school management. That's what we do. And then I went to him and he treated me just like his brother. So that's a bit complicated, that we know people, acquaintance, and we have a distance. It's not friendship. Then we change that into friendship and then quickly go into brother.
But aren't brothers friends?
Yeah, but you know, the way friendship is in the Western world, that is way, way different from the kind of brotherhood we have in our culture. You know, it's a very strong bonding. It's beyond material, and it's beyond just listening to somebody, you know. It's helping, it's being very close, it's being there. It's actually, you have to see it in action. See, for example, let me give you example, since we both know the same person. So Rehan, let's talk about Rehan. Okay, so Rehan, I know him for last 20 years. So we are like brothers, right? We would fight with each other. We would do all kinds of things, and still we will be together. And once that friendship changes into brotherhood, then your families come together. So his daughters and my daughters are very close friends. And girls usually in our culture, they are friends. But men, they change their friendship into brotherhood.
Okay, that's very interesting. But you also defined friends. And Victor, please correct me if I'm wrong, in the same way we do. A friendship is someone who's close, someone who comes and helps you when you really need someone in time. I didn't know that you've known Rehan that long. I had no idea until just now. Would you agree? Is it much different than how we see friendship in the Western world?
Absolutely, absolutely.
No,
Very
I'm
frank.
asking, wait a minute. I'm asking Victor, because when you said, oh, it's two different things. No, not really. To me, it's all the same. Victor, what do you think?
When I began this broadcast, I talked about the subjectivity of the word friend. And there's a distinct difference between his culture and mine, between him in the East and me in the West. There's a saying, sort of humorous, that we use in America, where we say, you can pick your friends, but you can't pick your family. So your family, you have to love them. I have to love my brother because he's my brother. Ryan, on the other hand, should him and myself become friends, we choose to be friends. It appears that in the East, brotherhood is more desirable than friendship.
Exactly.
What they call in the East brotherhood, many of us call good friends and
Exactly.
close friends. So defining of the terms is once again something that makes the difference between the East and the West. But the emotion that we talk about when we talk about friendship, I think the emotion is genuine and it's comparable in the East and the West. Now, when someone from the East and the West come together, when they become friends, when they are placed in an environment where they have access to one another, then you get some changes. You get some, in fact, you may not even have the capacity to be best friends because the person in the East sees things differently from you. But it is not a source of conflict as far as I can see. Because even before you begin to be friends with another person, you have to become friends with yourself. And sometimes people draw on their friendship. They pull from their friendship certain needs that they have, certain things that where they're deficient, they want to get that from their friends. And in actuality, that can be troublesome, that can be bothersome. There's another saying in American that says a friend in need is a friend indeed. Is that something that we want to embrace? Is that something that we believe in? Are you going to be my friend because you need me to do something? Am I going to be your friend because I need you to do something? The requirements for friendship, I'm pretty sure that they're different, but I'm sure also that the benefits are a little different. Like, let's talk about one aspect of friendship. Do you, and Ryan, I'd like to hear your input on this. Do you lend your friends money?
Yeah, I think this is a very good point. Money. I mean, very, very good point. Yes, once the person is our brother, changed from friendship to brother, then of course, indeed, money is not an issue. You have to provide your brother with money. That's absolutely true.
So in terms of lending and paying back, another saying,
Yeah.
I got lots of saying, if you really want to get somebody out of your life who's no longer your friend, lend them some money.
No, it's not like that with us. We would lend money and we would ask by when you will pay me back, and that person would say, yeah, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, next month. And if they are a bit late, we don't mind. We might fight with each other on that issue, but that's brotherhood. You know that he's in need or he doesn't have money right now, so.
That's the second time you've mentioned fight, disagreement. Is that just a part of life? Is that just part of friendship? Is that just part of brotherhood?
Oh, yes.
Because
Oh,
for
yes.
me, go ahead.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's very important. I mean, you see, like I was talking about Rehan, the way we fight with each other, and we won't be talking with each other for maybe a week. And then maybe I'll call him and I say, I'm sorry, you're my brother. Or maybe he will call and I say, yeah, we fight a lot. We would fight on issues and then we will be back because we are brothers. Yeah, of course. And we say in our culture that fighting increases the bondage, the brotherhood. That's our saying.
Well, that's odd for me because, go on, Carla.
And I agree with that, because people who are close to you, you should be able to say anything to.
Exactly.
And if you can say anything to, you may not always agree. I mean,
Exactly.
I know that I argue with Rehan a lot, which amazes me, but we're constantly at times, please, Rehan, don't see this show. But we're constantly kind of battling things through. And it could also, the battle may not be that you disagree more than you don't understand what the other person is saying. And if you really care for someone, you're going to take a moment and think it through before you say, oh, you're no longer my friend, because that's probably not the case. It's probably more that you didn't understand what that person was saying to you.
I agree.
In terms of developing friendship, let's go there for a little bit. You meet someone or you know someone, and over the passage of time, you notice things about you and that person that work. It just work. Like that person likes football, you like football. That person likes the right side of the bed, you like the left side. That matches. So when things like that happen over a period of time, you develop some semblance of a friendship. And as long as things are as you expect them to be, the friendship will be a friendship. But then something happens and a conflict develops. That's when it really gets kind of murky, because when the conflict develops, are you enough friends that you let it go? Or are you enough friends that you hash it out and find a happy medium? How does friendship figure in the early stages? Because there's certain things that can occur in the early stages of knowing someone that takes them off my list of ever being my friend. And I'd like to clarify what I say about when I say my friend, I'm not just talking about friend in the generic sense. I'm talking about my inner circle. Inner circle is a place where there's only a handful of people in my inner circle. And those people in my inner circle, they have carte blanche to pretty much do anything. But en route to getting to be my inner circle, there may be some conflicts that develop that takes them off the list. Because see, there are certain groups of people that I and many of you find objectionable for whatever reason. And if I meet someone, or if I have a connection with someone that's in one of those groups, the one thing that they can be sure of is they will never become part of my inner circle. And so, since those people are not even part of my inner circle, the instance of disagreements are going to be low, because the fact that they're in my inner circle gives them carte blanche, and they got that carte blanche because of all the other places where we connect that puts them in my inner circle. And I hope I've been clear in what I've said about that, because it would make me sound sort of like a friend bigot, but in point of fact, I describe it as a benign bigot.
I see friendship a little differently. Of course, we're from different sides of the world in some ways, me being a woman and you being a man. But friendship begins with being able to be honest with each other and being able to open up. And I have to say, when I asked Rehan to introduce me to you, Rayed, he came back with something that I thought, oh, you're not going to speak with me. And then you wrote to me and said, oh, yeah, I really want to speak with you. So again, there were words that kind of clogged the movement, although I moved forward. Communication is very important, and it's very important to me to be able to say to you, hey, I don't understand what you're saying to me. Say it again, use different words. What do you think?
Yeah, of course, there has to be good communication, and I guess that's where we lack as a culture. We are not very expressive. We keep feelings within ourselves, maybe out of courtesy, or maybe out of I don't know what it is. So we are poor communicators on one side, but our bondage is stronger on the other. So Rehan and I, if I look back, uh, 10 out of 9 fights that we had in last 20 years was due to poor communication between us. But that's how we are, unfortunately.
And that's part of, that's not just in the East, it's also in the West. We think we're different because you're in the East and of course, I'm beginning to know a little about Islam, but I don't know much. And yet at the same time, because of that, there's a lot of miscommunication, a lot of misunderstanding, because what I'm saying may be exactly what you're saying, but our use of words makes it difficult to be a good friend or to be in this category. What do you think, Victor?
I think that what you say makes total sense, and I understand it all. However, these pesky little things in life, I call them pesky because they're hard to define, but you know them when you see them. These little things called nuances of communication. Man, I tell you, these nuances get in the way so often. In different parts of the world, there's this expectation that we have. We expect people in certain positions to behave a certain way. And that may be different from, well, it is different for me than it is for people in Pakistan. There's this concept that I had been studying called the Power Distance Index. And it describes the degree of difference between a person in one status and a person in another status. Like a person in a position of authority in my country, they don't hold no sway. You can be whoever, but the average person on the street will treat you just like you are one of them. In places like Pakistan and other parts of the world, there is a distinct difference between a person in authority and a person who's not in authority. So what happens in my part of the world, a person like me can befriend, can become close to someone who's in a position of authority. And as a result, that person in a position of authority can benefit me in ways that I cannot benefit them, right? And the friendship that we develop will take that into consideration. In another part of the world, no such thing is possible. If you are let's just say, if you are a teacher and I am a student, there's a thick line, there's a defining line between a teacher and a student, and the likelihood of a teacher and a student becoming best friends are minimal. Whereas where I am, it's a good possibility that a teacher and a student can become best friends, because the distance between the two people is not acknowledged as much as it is in another part of the world. So what you end up having is friendships that have different rules. Like if both of us are teachers, then we're going to behave as though we're teachers. If one is a teacher and one is a student, we can have a friendship, but in that friendship, I know that you are a student, you know that I'm a teacher, and we accept the differences in our stations as just part of the thing. And if I need a teacher to do something, you're my friend, you're going to help me out. Whereas in another part of the world, a teacher and a student, there's no way that they're ever going to be friends, because there's too much distance between their levels in society. And I hope I have articulated that the way that I wanted to, because I'm not trying to say that one way is better or worse than the other. I'm just saying it is important for our discussion to notice the difference, that friendship and the rules of friendship is not universal. Just because friends are equal, it doesn't mean that equal friends have equal, not responsibility, equal authority. Like a teacher and a student can't both do the same thing, but they both can be friends with each other.
That's very interesting, because I have I've been extremely involved with the Indian culture. And part of the Indian culture, for teacher and student, the teacher belongs to the student and the student belongs to the teacher. So there's a close bond. I don't know, I would assume, Rehan, and please correct your name.
You get it right every other time. Every other time you say it right.
Well, that's getting close.
Yeah.
That the same is in Pakistan. Student and teachers seem to have a really good relationship. I'm seeing this with the kids that I'm working with in Rehan's school.
Well, I think Victor is right there in East, starting right from Turkey all the way to Japan. Teacher has to make the call. He or she can be a friend of his or her students. That's a teacher's call. But teacher is always considered a mentor. Teacher is always on a pedestal. It's always on an ivory tower. So in our culture, we think that in order to learn better, to have a good training, you need to follow everything your mentor says, your teacher says. And to do that, you shouldn't have that friendship thing, then, because then you're not just following that person for a semester. In our culture, teacher bonding is for life, so you have to make that teacher your mentor. And that then if I recall what Victor was saying, I remember some of my mentors, one day they would treat me as a friend, as a brother, but another day they would be very different. And we are used to living with that changed role of your mentor or teacher.
Interesting. What do you think, Victor?
Oh, we both bandied around the same idea. But I'd like to revisit something that you said earlier about being honest with your friend. And I want to point out that another characteristic of friendship is, if it's easy to be me around you, to be the me that I was meant to be, the me that I love to be, then it's a possibility you could evolve into my inner circle. However, if it's a lot of work to just be Victor, right, then you're probably not going to move much closer to me. That's how I determine which people get into my inner circle, because I like a trouble-free life. And any trouble that I incur in my life, I like to be able to manage it. So the degree of difficulty in managing the things that occur in my life really defines whether I have a trouble-free life or not. But you don't have to be my friend for me to demonstrate honesty. Honesty is the way that I am. Now, certainly I'll take into consideration the fact that we are friends when you ask me questions, and the answer that I have for you, I know is not the answer that you are going to be excited about. Then I will be as gentle as I can in responding. But I am going to be honest, and I'm going to tell you the truth. And some people think that if you have to cause pain to somebody, that they're not your friend. But there's this verse in the Bible that says, faithful are the wounds of a friend. Get that? Faithful are the wounds of a friend. And whether or not it's a wound depends on whether you think of the person as a friend or not. So if a person is your friend and they seem to have hurt you, then you have to understand that there must be a caveat somewhere if they're your friend. And we go back to my initial assessment about friendship. It's all subjective. You could think somebody is your friend, but it doesn't have to be reciprocated. You might think that they're your friend, but they don't think that you're their friend. And that can be problematic. In fact, that can actually be a step in the direction of becoming friends, couldn't it, Rayed? When you and a person are at odds with what the relationship is. If all one person has to do is ask the question, and then the question will be answered, and who knows, the result might be you end up being friends.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. I agree with you.
And for me, I tend to go deep very quickly. When I meet people, I find out lots of things very quickly. Like, for instance, I say to someone, what is the first memory that you have? That's a deep question. The first memory that you have. And from that question, somebody is going to give you an answer, and the answer is going to lead to more conversation. What is your first memory? Now, for some people, that's a little invasive when you first meet them. But for me, it's not. So if you're the type of person that's guarded in your privacy, or if you're the type of person that doesn't like to share much about yourself, well, you won't ever have to worry about becoming my friend, because I'm probably going to insult you right off the bat by asking you, what is your first memory? Because that's a private thing. And I'm not asking you either. So, if you want to tell me, go right ahead. I'm just making a point as to how I go deep rather quickly. So some people, you don't know their last name until you've known them for 6 months.
Exactly.
But that isn't friendship. That's an acquaintance.
Well, of course, it's not friendship initially, but friendship is built. It's not an off and on switch. But over the course of knowing someone, friendship develops. And depending on how things go during that period when the friendship is developing, either friendship will develop or it won't. And if you're not interested in someone's last name, or someone doesn't want to share their last name, it's going to be a long time before you ever become friends, if you even become friends.
What do you think, Ray?
Actually, in our part of the world, things are, I don't know, a bit complicated, or maybe they are different, because in our culture, religion plays a very, very, very a strong role in our lives. And it's very difficult to explain it to you, very frankly. I'm saying this because I lived in States for 11 years, and I studied education. I studied psychology there and worked there. And I was involved in our Islamic center, where lots of people converted to Islam, and I worked with them as well. So as a psychologist, I know it's very difficult for a Western mind to comprehend life and relationships in East, because lots of things are dictated by what Prophet has said and what Quran says, so that channels our thought. So for example, our neighbor, there are so many sayings and so many verses in Quran and sayings of the Prophet regarding your neighbor, that the minute we meet our neighbor, we have to add bhai or brother with his name, which is this confirmation that as a neighbor, you are not my friend, you are my brother. So that's very important, And the way it works, that there are 5 houses. It's a cluster. One is mine, and then there are 4 other houses. And out of those 4 houses, 3 are elder than me. So I will call them bhai out of respect, because they're elder, and they will just say my name, right? So I would say Ashraf bhai, I would say Akbar bhai, add bhai to the name, But the one who is younger than me, who lives right next door on my right hand side, I would not call him bhai. I would call him just his name, Naim. and he will call me bhai because I'm elder than him. So we add bhai to, and they are not my, yeah, they are my friends in a way, but they are my responsibility. Our religion makes our neighbor our responsibility. That's number one. Number two, our religion very clearly says that every Muslim is brother to another Muslim. They're part of, there are so many sayings, every Muslim is part of a whole body. We are like cells of a body. All Muslims are cells of a body. Then there is saying that Muslim nation, Muslim Ummah is like a wall, and you are one of the bricks in those walls. And you will be asked for your relationship with your brother. So there is so much obligation, there is so much responsibility. For example, a Muslim does not quit talking to another Muslim for more than 3 nights. Before 3 nights end, you have to go and talk to that person. Otherwise, you will be sinful. Your prayers will not be accepted. So for us, it's very difficult, I guess.
Well, understand this, Rehan. This medium that we're using,
Yeah.
I also earlier mentioned access. Access. See, this medium is giving you access to me, and it's giving me access to you. And the concept that you are sharing with me is telling me something that I didn't know, is helping me learn about you. Prolonged contact this way, regular contact this way, though you and I are separated by miles and miles and miles, according to my definition of friendship, you and me could become friends simply because we are communicating. We may have totally, completely different cultures, but you and me are communicating. We're using words. Your words might have more power than my words, or vice versa. But the fact that we are sharing, and if we do this over an extended period of time, that is what would be the basis for a friendship that we could develop. There's a story about Wyatt Earp. See, and I don't know if you're familiar with early American history. They had the Wild West. Everybody walked around with a 6-gun. You know, you had sheriffs and law people that really helped build the country. And Wyatt Earp, who was a well-known lawman, was fast with the gun and ended up, whipping towns into shape. If you can check out Wyatt Earp on Google. And then there was Doc Holliday. Doc Holliday was a criminal. And what he did is he goaded people into gunfights and he killed them. Well, you wouldn't expect that Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp would become good friends, but they were lifelong friends. People saw them hanging together. Wyatt Earp took heat for hanging with Doc Holliday. Doc Holliday took heat for hanging with Wyatt Earp. So while you and I are, and this is a phrase from American English, you and I are unlikely bedfellows. We could become bedfellows just because of the information you're sharing and the information that I'm sharing. But what's making the difference is the willingness to listen, the willingness to suspend what I know to be true, what I think to be true, and hear what you're saying. And actually, what you're saying, it doesn't sound horrible. It sounds kind of appealing that you consider everyone, that you can't be mad at people for more than 3 days. Man, there are feuds in America that's been going on for generations, just because of the last name of the person. So I appreciate you sharing your thoughts about what you about Islam, and I hope that I get to hear more about it. And Friendship, Carla, is a great venue, is a great route for me to know more about the Islam culture, because we've had many people. I mean, I've talked to many people who are part of the Islamic culture, but they've never told me what you just told me. And if we hadn't been talking about friendship today, you probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to share what you just did. So thank you a lot. And Carla, thank you for having the show.
And I also want to say, whenever I bring people together, I never know what's going to happen on the panel. And it's been very interesting because I just met Rehan.
Yeah, that's it.
Right?
That's
Rehan?
it.
No, I don't think it's the long A sound, but I just met him. And how I met him, I told the story before. I thought Rehan said, "Oh, he's not going to talk to you," but Rehan meant the opposite. You are going to talk to me. So communication is an interesting part. I knew nothing about Muslims until I met this man, Rehan. And since that 5.5 years ago, I must have spoken to at least thousands of Muslims between the shows I do and the interviews. And they have become my friends because we have started very honest, open conversations, which actually make me feel very good to have done. So, I love how you said it earlier, Rehan, that friendship can either become family or they stay kind of out of the family thing and a responsibility. I think that's true here also, but I don't think people think about it. It just happens. Would you agree to that?
I bet you that Ryan would tell you people actually think about it. It doesn't just happen. It's from listening to him, things seem rather structured as opposed to that loose cannon way that we do things in America. So wouldn't you say that it's structured, Ryan, or does it just happen like Carla suggested?
No, it's very structured. It's very structured because men have to go to mosque for a prayer. Well, we have to go 5 times, but at least we try to go. Some people go 5 times, but at least I try to make it to masjid once a day. And there, when we start praying, I don't know if you have seen any pictures or videos of Muslims praying. We have to stand like joined with another Muslim, because our Prophet said that if you are not joining your bodies, then the devil is standing between you. So when we stand shoulder to shoulder and 50 people in a line standing in a big mosque, in my neighborhood mosque, 20 people stand in a row, and there is no space between them. So the bondage starts to take place naturally, because your body is synergizing. That barrier is no more, right? So if that person wants to talk to you, he can have you, he would just stop you, and you can't say no. See, this is how how structured it is. He would say bhai. He would not even say my name. He say, bhai, can you sit with me? I have to ask you something. So I'm obliged. I have to sit. That's one thing. And second thing, that due to this thing that in prayer our bodies are joined, I have noticed that in our culture, we touch the other person a lot. We touch them a lot. We would touch them while talking to them. And we would hug them, and we will, do all kinds of things, which is not very much known or done in Western culture.
Mm-hmm.
See, I mean, in West, people don't like touching each other, a lot. But we do that. We do that. That is our way of bondage, just the way animals do, monkeys do, and goats do, and everybody else. So it's very, very much structured. So far, even if there is a disagreement between two people, then it is obligatory on the third person from the same neighborhood or from the same mosque to invite those two neighbors or persons or friends, whatever you want to, brothers, to his house for food, so they can have that disagreement removed. And there is a huge reward mentioned for that third person who had these two people come to his house, and he created a friendship between them. So it is so structured. It's very much structured. You know, social structure in Islam, you can talk for hours about it and how it affects our lives and how it works. It's just amazing, you know, just amazing.
Well, I can talk about it for hours as well. And the difficulty that I see, and there is a difficulty, to be a part of what you just described, it would bring strength to anybody who was a part of it. It'll bring love to anybody who's a part of it.
Exactly.
However, the relationship between the people who are a part of it and the people who are not a part of it, I imagine that relationship would be kind of strained, because if the people who are not a part of it want to be in relationship with someone who is a part of it, well, they're going to have to become a part of it. I mean, that's the unspoken position. I don't know whether that's true or not, but with group association also comes the possibility for ostracism by someone who's not in the group, and ostracism doesn't feel good.
Well, I mean, that's not how it is, but you know, like for example, talking to Carla, I'll be very forthcoming on this issue. So for example, I have stopped coming on these sessions anymore. I don't give, no interviews, no nothing. I just out of it, you know, because I have an organization to run and I'm so busy all the time. And I have people who are going on to shows and talking. And so I stay in the background now. But, you know, so for example, if you ask me, I would never like to be on this show, very frankly. But you know, the way it works, that this is our culture. Number one, Rehan told Carla to have me on the show, so I don't want to make him angry. That's my part. And secondly, some lady living in US so far, and she is teaching people in our country, doing her part. So I can't refuse her as a culture. I mean, it would be very selfish in our culture to say no to her, even though I hate coming to shows.
Well, look what happened to you. Look what happened to you today. If you didn't come here today, you would not have met me. And I think that you'd have to agree that your life would not be your life would be less if you didn't meet me. I mean, I'm glad we met.
Yeah, me too. Nice to meet you.
I never wanted you to feel obligated to come.
But see, that's the thing. The way that he feels doesn't have anything to do with you. He's being him. That's what he does. That's how he feels. You, with all due respect, just like I, would be a coincidence, because he has a way that he is, and the way that he is, that makes a difference who you are, who I am, and I think that's beautiful. I think that more of that would be necessary. But the difficulty is that when we believe that we're going to hurt somebody's feelings, or we believe that somebody's not going to like something that we do, then we may not just be who we are. But no matter how somebody feels or don't feel, they're not going to feel that way forever, and it always changes. But you be you, because that's what you're good at, and nobody else has that job.
I agree.
Thank you, guys. Believe it or not, we have actually been speaking for an hour. And Rehan, if you don't feel like coming, You can tell me.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, it's okay. So the responsibilities are more important than what you like and you don't like.
See, he sees
Okay.
things different, completely differently from you or I. However,
Exactly.
I think I'm going to watch this show. I think this was a good show. I think I'll watch this show again just to see how we looked.
Actually, let me add one last thing maybe to this. For example, if Victor says to me that I want to come to Pakistan, right? And I would be your guest. So I would say that you be my guest. So if someone says from another land saying that I want to come to your country, so we will clearly, definitely say that be my guest. That's an honor. Number one. Number two, we have to have that person living in our house. We just can't put them in a hotel or a motel. That's a no-no.
I get it. I get it. I don't guess hotels and motels are big business where you live, huh?
So it's a, let's say even for example, if I don't have space in my house, I will go to my neighbor's house and say to him, Bhai, we have a guest. He's my guest. He's coming from some place because he wanted to come and I invited him, but there is no space in my house. So can you please arrange a room? And he will have to.
Good show.
And having said that, I actually need to get something done, but I want to thank you guys for talking to me today. It has been very, very educational in many ways, because there is a difference between men and women and how we see things. And it was made very clear today that we need to respect that difference. So with that, do you want to say a few seconds of what you guys are taking away from this show today?
You can't expect me to do that in a few seconds, but thanks for trying.
No, you really need to. I will.
Intelligence knows no boundaries. Two intelligent people having a conversation is going to be heartfelt for both of them, even though the basis of the conversation is intelligence. Some emotions transpire as well.
There's three of us.
Oh, I'm talking about me and Riad.
You're not including. I better.
But I talk to you all the time.
Okay, Riad.
Well, I don't have anything to add because the last words that Victor has said, they are just beautiful. So I want to stop there.
Okay, with that, I am going to wave goodbye, and so are you. And we are going to end the show now. But you guys don't go anywhere yet.
Okay.